name is Derek from Tomcat Gas Training and welcome to this video all about these. Well, what is it? Well, this is a flue off a condensing boiler. So this video is all about the positioning and the installation of these things, flues for room sealed appliances. But before we get into this video, please could you take some time to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that notification bell because you want YouTube to tell you every time I upload videos. So, done enough fluffing and waffling now, so let's get on with it! Now, first part of this video, we're going to look at all the regulations when we're installing the flues. Now, the regulations we're going to be working to when we're installing these room sealed appliances, we're going to be using BS 5440 Part 1. And this is the fluing and ventilation for gas appliances of rated input not exceeding 70 kilowatt net, first, second and third family gases. So that is BS 5440 Part 1. We've also got the Gas Safety Installation and Use Regulations 1998, which was amended in 2018. We've also got Building Regulations Document J, which is the approved document for air supply, discharge of products of combustion. So Document J. And of course, we'll always need the manufacturer's instructions for any boilers or any gas appliance, because we go off the manufacturer's instructions for when we're looking at flues. Now, for you guys who are doing your training or about to do your reassessment or even your initial assessment, let's have a look at the classifications of the different types of flues first. All appliances are now classified by PDCR 1749-2005. This is a new European standard for the method of evacuation of the products of combustion. It means that the classification of appliances burning combustible gases is the same across the European community. There are three main types of appliances grouped according to how they discharge their products of combustion. So let's have a look at these three lots of different appliances more closely. Now, this European standard now classifies these appliances as type A, B and C. So type A is flueless appliances, type B is open flued appliance, and type C are room sealed. So let's look at type A first. So these types of appliances is not intended for connection to the flue or any device for evacuating the products of combustion to the outside of the room in which the appliance is installed. The products of combustion are released into the room in which the appliance is installed. The air for combustion is taken from the room. So these appliances would be a cooker, a flueless space heater, and you can actually have a flueless water heater. So let's have a look at these type B open flued appliances. So these types of appliances is intended to connect to the flue that evacuates the products of combustion to outside the room containing the appliance. The air for combustion is taken from the room. So these are mainly boilers and space heaters, or what we like to call them, fires. So the final type of appliance, which is the most common type now, the type C room sealed. So the air supply, combustion chamber, heat exchanger and the evacuation of the products of combustion or the combustion circuit for these types of appliances is sealed with respect to the room in which the appliance is installed. So this actually takes the air for combustion from outside the property, not from within like the flueless and the open flue do. So again, types we would get mainly are boilers, we can get water heaters, and we can still get some types of space heaters or fires which are room sealed. Now let's turn our attention to the actual installation of these flues for room sealed appliances. Now technically, no gas engineer should ever be installing a flue in the wrong location, because the manufacturer's instructions are pretty precise on the positioning when we're installing these flues. But when you walk around the streets, you'll see quite a lot of flues are installed incorrectly. So let's have a look at some of these positions we need to be installing flues in. So it's incredibly important that the boiler flue is installed correctly to 1. The manufacturer's instructions, 2. the building regulations, and 3. the British standards. So the main 2 reasons for this is 1. so we get the right amount of air in to the boiler for complete combustion, and the products of combustion and plume, 1. don't become a nuisance, and 2. don't enter back into the building to cause carbon monoxide poisoning. So that's the main reasons we need to make sure these flues are installed correctly. So first of all, let's have a look at this flue here, which terminates onto a public footpath. Now, I am 6'2" in my stocking feet, and you can see this flue is only just above my head. Now, according to the building regulations document J, it says a flue terminating onto a public footpath needs to be 2.1 metres from the path to the bottom of the flue, and this is 2 metres to the centre. So that's the first regulation this flue has broken. Also, it says the flue needs to be 300 millimetres away from an opening to a building, which again is nowhere near. And also, if a flue is less than 2 metres off the ground, it should also have a terminal guard on there. So we've got quite a few problems with this flue system, which is terminating on a public footpath. Now, as I've just said, the measurements for the flue distances come from the bottom, the top, or the sides. From here, not from the outlet side, from actually where the inlet comes in. So this is the air inlet of this flue system, and this is the products of combustion out. They're not all exactly the same, but they're pretty much the same. So that's where the measurements come from. Now, let's take these measurements and break them down and see what we can categorise them as. So 2.1 metres not off the floor in a public footpath is breaking the building regs. So you could report that to your local building control and they would deal with it. It doesn't kind of contravene the gas regulations because it's not dangerous to people in the property. It's not got a terminal guard because it's not higher than 2 metres off the floor. That is breaking the gas regulations and the building regs. But again, is it dangerous? According to the unsafe situations procedure, IGEM G11, we will be categorising this as not to current standards. Yeah, it still exists that, or we should be notifying the responsible person that it requires a terminal guard. Now the dangerous bit is not 300 mil away from the opening to within the building. Now what our regulations say is if it's less than this 300, we would be seeing if there's more than 10 parts per million of CO, carbon monoxide, entering the building. And if there is more than 10 parts per million CO entering the building, we would categorise that system as immediately dangerous, and that boiler would be shut down and disconnected from the gas supply with the customer's permission. Now, flues are all different. They're in different situations this, so if it's not getting the products of combustion into the property, you could still deem it at risk if you thought there was a very likelihood of the products of combustion entering this property. So it all depends on which opening the flue's going into, whether it's a window, door, air vent or whatever. So you would make that decision on each individual installation. So whether you would be at risk in it, notifying somebody to say it's not to the standards, or make it immediately dangerous. Now this flue looks like a Baxi or an ideal flue. Now according to the manufacturer's instructions for both those boilers, it said there should be no white showing on the flue when it's sticking out the wall. It should be more than 25 mil away from that downpipe. But again, this is just poor sighting of a boiler. That would be the last place I would be looking to put it. So why is it important that baxi and ideal flues don't stick out too far? Well, really, you don't want any flue sticking out too far. But the reason why these two flues can't stick out is because this could happen. Now, these flues aren't protected from UV rays. So what could happen is the outer skin, which is the air inlet, as we now found out, that it could actually go and rot the metal away. Now, this flue was installed dipping down like that, so when the rain hit the flue, it ran down to the bottom end there, and that's how it ended up rotting away, because the flue was put on the wrong angle and it was sticking out the wall too far. So it's incredibly important when we're installing flues that one, we install them on the right angle, and two, we don't have them sticking out the wall. Now, what angle do we install the flues at? Well, if we're using the standard flue length of any boiler manufacturer, you would be installing it level. So if I change back to this one, you can see this is where the products of combustion will come out, and this is where the flue would be connected to the boiler. So you can see this would be in the centre of the flue, whereas this is at the top of the flue, so it already has a built-in fall. So you only ever put a fall on a condensing boiler flue if you're going using extensions and making it longer than the standard flue length. But if you're using the standard flue length, you put it perfectly straight. And that will stop things like this happening, rotting away, if you don't stick it out the wall too far. So don't stick it out too far, there's no need. So it's not just ideal and baxi flues which will rot away if you have them on the wrong angle and sticking out too far. As some of you will know, this is a Worcester flue. And you can see this flue has also corroded at the bottom because it's sticking out and it's falling back to the boiler. So what's happening is the rain's hitting the flue and then running back down to where the wall is, collecting where the wall is, and then just rotting away the flue. So there's no need to have a flue sticking out of the wall, whichever the manufacturer is. And again, we've got another couple of flues sticking out the wall. Now the bottom one is either a baxi or an ideal, so again that would be at risk, and the top one, again sticking out, shows signs of corrosion and damage, so again would be at risk. But the main problem with this is it's on a public building which is just around the corner from where my training centre is, so shame on you, local council. And again, we've got flue sticking out here from these two flats, and I guess the engineers stuck the flues out because they thought they were too close to an internal corner, so they wanted to get past the internal corner. But again, this can cause the flues to corrode and could also cause them to be at risk. So again, guys, always follow your manufacturer's instructions and think about where you're siting these flues so you don't have to have the flue sticking out a mile. Now there are some situations where you can stick the flue out. This is a glowworm or a valent flue, and they do allow you to stick the flue out of the wall when you're under eaves, but the flue needs to be 200 away from the eaves and 25mm away from the guttering, and you can see it isn't either of those. So yes, you can stick a valent flue out through the wall, but you must follow the manufacturer's instructions when you're doing this. So if we look in the valent manufacturer's instructions, this shows you exactly how you would terminate the flue past a balcony, eaves or a gutter, and the end of the flue needs to be 25mm past the gutter. So this one was nearly installed correctly because this is a glowworm flue. What's missing? Yeah, did you get it? No clips. But also, is the flue terminal more than 300 away from the vents in the eaves? So in this situation, all these things need to be taken into consideration. Now a last look at flues which need to stick out from the wall. So if you've got something like this, which is a covered walkway, then we've got a few problems. So the first one being the flue will need to be 1200mm away from any openings within the building, like it would be under a carport. Now one way of getting around these covered walkways or balconies is to use this type of system. So some of the manufacturers produce this, which is actually called the balcony kit. So what it does is it extends the products of combustion part of the flue away from the building. In the manufacturer's instructions, ideal say that this flue must also fall at least 1.5 degrees back towards the boiler. So if I was being a little bit picky, then I would say this is pretty flat. But that's the ideal balcony kit. So installations like this, they just take my words away. I am bewildered and staggered that somebody would install a flue system like this. Again, we've got a Baxia and Ideal sticking out through the wall. Again, would be at risk. They have clipped it, but this would be crying out for a balcony kit because there's an openable window right next to where the flue is. You can't really tell from this picture whether it's more than 300 away from this window, but there's not going to be much left of this porch when this condensing boiler runs for a long time. What can you say? Now this flue is under some kind of covered patio, and it is 1200mm away from those patio doors, and this is open on 3 sides, even if it has got this bit of trellis here, and the flue is actually more than 200 down from the roof part, but the air intake part for this flue is actually half in the wall. So again, we will be classing this as at risk. Now, flues in covered passageways or ginnels. Now, GasSafe have produced a technical bulletin 007 for this to give you guidance on it, and you must pay particular attention to if there's bedrooms above the ginnel or passageway. My advice in this one would be steer well clear of it. Now also, we've just seen carports, flues under carports. Certain manufacturers, Worcester, don't really like you installing flues under carports, and they say you can use your plume management kit to go above the carport. So pretty much like this. So what they're saying is you can, because the carport would be open on at least 2 sides, they say it's got to be open at least 2 sides. They're saying you can stay in the same pressure zone by going up through the roof and terminating facing the same way as the air coming in, but you must be 300mm from the pitch of the roof. So yeah, again, keep saying it, keep going on about it. It's manufacturer's instructions when you're referring to tricky installations. So let's finish off this section with this amazing installation. So these are actually 2 commercial boilers in a commercial premises. So again, they've got the flue sticking out of the wall. Again, it's not clipped. Sticking the flue out of the wall does not make you more than 300 away from the opening within the building. Also, these flues running parallel with each other, they should be 300mm apart. So in this situation, you would be at risk in this all day long. And again, if you were getting more than 10 parts per million CO coming in through that door, then you will be IDing this installation. Again, such a poor installation. We can actually go one step better with this, or is it worse? Anyway, can't say this is the first time I've ever seen a flue like this before. Who'd put a flue through a door? Anyway, this is still an opening into a building even though it's a shed. So if I went out to this boiler the first thing I would be doing is at-risking it. Who'd actually install this? It just beggars belief. So you can see there, depending on where the boiler is actually installed, you might have to look at different manufacturers to see which boiler suits the situation where you need to put your flue. So if you have to install a boiler under a balcony, then look at finding boilers that do balcony kits. So that's all about flue sticking out. A lot of the time there's no need for them to be stuck out so far. Just look at where the boiler is actually installed, and there are situations where you might have to actually move the boiler because it's not suited for the place for the new boiler, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's look at how we're going to clip this flue system. Now, is the engineer who installed this flue system a genius or an absolute balloon? Because they used bricks instead of clips to hold the flue up. So unsecured flue using bricks at risk. So we replaced the boiler and the flue system, and we used the correct clips with the correct spacings, so clips should not be more than 1.8 meters apart or every change of direction. Now, this old glowworm micron boiler we replaced a while ago, and if we have a look at the flue system for this, it actually goes into this crawl space under a floor, and again you can see there's not a clip in sight. So we had to replace this boiler with an Ideal Vogue. So we put a new flue system in, and again we use the correct clips with the correct spacings. It's not hard. Now, you may come across some flues which are secured with this band strapping, which used to be quite common, but now is not allowed because this flue is still unsecured. So again, it would be at risk. And also they've used this silver tape to secure the joints, which again is not allowed. So you're not allowed to tape up your joints whether you're using closure plate tape or duct tape. It's just a no-no. It does not make the flue secure. So use the correct clips to the manufacturer's instructions. So just to contradict myself, this is a Worcester flue, and this flue does need screwing and taping because it's a telescopic flue. And this joint will be inside the cavity wall, so it needs to be taped. So yes, there are some cases where flues do need to be taped if the manufacturer supplies the tape and tells you to do it. Now, some of the boiler manufacturers require their flue systems to be screwed together, and the Valent group being one of them. So you can see here these two flues are joined together, and the collar needs to go over the gap, and the collar needs to be screwed to the flues. So if we have a look at this other Valent flue system, you can see first of all that the collar is too big where it joins the flue elbow to the turret, and it's not screwed. And the other collar shows signs of corrosion and isn't screwed also. So this is showing signs that the seal has gone, and this flue again will be classed as at risk, and if you were getting products of combustion coming into the room, it would then be ID. So you can see on this Valent boiler that these collars can actually hide a poor installation. So you can see this boiler needs to go up at least 3 inches to bring the flue system in line, so the small collar can secure the flue elbow to the actual turret and the elbow itself. The reason why Valent want their flue system securing with screws is if the boiler bracket fails, then hopefully the pipework and the flue system will stop the boiler come crashing down. Hopefully. Now, this flue system looks a lot like the Valent flue, but it's actually off an Ariston boiler, and this does not require screwing, but it still requires the 2 collars. And if you look at the collar which joins the flue elbow to the actual main flue system, it's got 2 holes in it, but the holes are not for screws, they're viewports to check that you've gone full socket with the flue system. So again guys, not every flue requires screws.
You just need to read the manufacturer's instructions.
Now, another common fault we seem to be seeing quite a lot now when we go out to service boilers or repair boilers is this one, where either the air inlet test point or the products of combustion out test point is either missing or broken. Now then, take this situation here where this is the air inlet, not the products of combustion going out, and the bung's missing, so somebody's put tape over it. So that would be classed as, in our unsafe situations, IGEM G11, at risk. Now, it also says if our products of combustion out test point is missing or broken, even without 10 parts per million CO entering the room, we will categorise that as immediately dangerous. Now, we've done a few tests here on when the cap's been missing, and the maximum we could ever get CO coming into the room was 3 parts per million. We couldn't get anywhere near the 10 parts per million. So that's why they've made it automatically ID, because they've probably done the same thing. The other thing, which is nothing to do with flues, but it's kind of on the same principle because it's classed as part of the FLUES, is the casing. So if the casing of the boiler has got a hole in it, or there's a bung missing, or the grommets where the wires go through are not sealed or missing, then that's also classified as at risk. But again, if there's more than 10 parts per million CO coming into that room, we will be classifying that as immediately dangerous. And this is where doing the sweep test comes in. And if you don't know what a sweep test is, check out my videos on how to use a flue gas analyzer, because it will show you what a sweep test is. And that is the end of part 1 on boiler flues. So if you've liked this video, why don't you give me that thumbs up or leave a constructive comment down below. If you've not subscribed to my channel, then please subscribe because it helps. And don't forget to hit that notification bell, because I release videos mainly on Mondays and Wednesdays. All I've got left to say is thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and tune in on Wednesday for part 2 of Boiler Flues. Cheers guys!